You see this cat here? This sassy cat. She's not allowed on my desk. Get down here. Hi friends, welcome back to Finishing the Score, where you can follow along with my musical theater writing and songwriting journey as I share the resources and tips I'm learning along the way. Today we're going to talk about polyphonic songs and their use in musical theater, and we're going to be looking at an example from Disney's Encanto with We Don't Talk About Bruno, and I'm going to go into one of my own songs where we're going to look at how I'm using polyphony in my own work. Before we get into this week's topic, let's get a quick update on how my projects are going. Alright, here we are, starting on my musical, The Sigma 5 Heist, and the progress this week. I've been working on a song called Do We Have a Connection? That's 1.5 here, and you can see that I've made some progress this week on some song form, melody, harmony, and groove, so a bunch of progress. Still not quite there, but this is a song that we're going to be talking about later in the video. Moving over to the EP, I have a song here called Just Begin, which is about the resistance that we feel as we sit down to be creative. So here I've got melody, harmony, groove, and a little bit of demo recording that I worked on this week, but I'm still not quite there. I still need a bridge for the song, so that's what I'm going to be working on in the upcoming week. Alright, let's get into the topic of the week, and that is writing polyphonic songs. What is polyphony? Let's define that first. Polyphony is when you have two or more independent melodies working together, playing simultaneously. In musical theater, this typically means that there are two or more vocal lines being sung simultaneously. There are a lot of different musical theater songs that use this technique. Some of my favorites include the Tonight Quintet from West Side Story, there's One Day More from Les Mis, No Good Can Come From Bad from Edwin Drood, and 96,000 from In the Heights. But today we're going to be talking about the one that is stuck in everyone's head right now, which is We Don't Talk About Bruno from Disney's newest movie, Encanto. Don't worry if you haven't seen the movie yet, there are no spoilers in this. We're just going to be looking at the sheet music and understanding what's going on in this song. And before we get into the sheet music, I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the song. So I put together a little flowchart showing the different sections as we go through the song. Starting out with the hook, all of these blue boxes are the hook. We Don't Talk About Bruno comes up periodically throughout the song as a repeat element. And then we've got our different character sections in different colors here. We've got a Peppa and Felix section, a Dolores, Camilo, and then we have these four boxes I would consider to be a bridge for the song. We have townspeople, Isabella, Dolores, and Mirabel, each singing individually in this section. And then we have our polyphonic section. So we have four individual music themes going on here, but we also have Peppa and Felix are singing a duet together. So we essentially have five different people singing at the same time during the polyphonic section, and then we close it out with the hook with We Don't Talk About Bruno. So let's take a look at the sheet music. All right, so we mentioned that we've got the hook right at the beginning. I wanted to point something out. Each of these sections with the different characters happens to have the same number of bars and the same chord progression. So here, this bar is the beginning of the Peppa and Felix section. So we have C minor, F minor, G, and F minor. That's 2 bars. We see the same thing here, and we see the same thing once again, and then we have 2 more bars. One is an A flat and one is a G7. So that rounds out our 8-bar phrase. They happen to continue with another 8-bar phrase before closing out with We Don't Talk About Bruno. Once again, we get the hook before moving into the Dolores section. And what's really cool here is you start to see that it's got the same exact structure and chord progression, the same 4 chords on these 2 bars. We have a slight variation here as we hear the sound of falling sand. So that's pretty cool, but it's similar enough where they go together. And we see the same thing with it going to the A flat and the G at the end there. Moving on to Camilo's section, also the same structure, same chords, rounding out in the same way. We don't talk about Bruno, no. Let's move right ahead to the polyphonic section itself. I want you to note that all of these actually start at a different place in the bar. So Camilo starts first, then Dolores, then we have Isabella's right on the downbeat, then we have Peppa, and then we have Felix. So each one of the 5 people comes in at a different time, so you can hear each of those independently when you're listening. Another thing I want to point out is that the melodies actually have different note lengths in the different sections. So we've got Dolores on the fastest. We've got her on 16th notes. We've got Peppa and Felix are mostly 8th notes. They do have some 16ths in there, but mostly 8ths. Camilo is mostly 8ths and quarter notes, so he's got the longer phrases. So contrast that with Dolores, you hear those very differently. So let's say you want to write a polyphonic song for the theater. What do? So here are the steps that I've come up with. First thing is that you're going to come up with a phrase length and a chord progression that you're going to write all of your different melodies to. 8 bars or 16 bars tends to work really well, as those are pretty common phrase lengths. Number 2, you're going to write your first melody, a melody that works with that phrase length and that chord progression. Number 3, you're going to start writing your second melody. And here's where it gets interesting. The second melody is going to have to contrast from the first melody in those ways that we observed in We Don't Talk About Bruno. So you're going to want to start it at a different point in the bar. You're going to want to vary the note length. And some of the other things that you can do to create variation between the two melodies, you can have different melodic shapes. One of them can be very static, while another one could maybe go up and then down, or another one could go down then up. And another thing that you can do to help make these melodies heard distinctly is to have them exist in different melodic ranges. So not be all on the same sets of notes. One higher, one in the middle, one lower, etc. To make them sound different. Step 4, repeat for all of your desired melodies. Basically, you're going to want to start by listening to each new melody just with the first one that you created, and then with the others, you want to make sure that they go together. You want to see if you can try to fit the movement of the notes at different times. So maybe if one has a long note, that's when the other melody might be moving, etc. That's one of the ways that you can have them sound independently. All right, and step 5 is to set up a song structure that supports your polyphony. So like we saw in We Don't Talk About Bruno, you're going to want to start by establishing each of your individual melodies alone so that the audience can hear what they are. If you just launch right into polyphony, then people are not going to have any idea what's going on or who's singing what. As we observed in We Don't Talk About Bruno, you want to consider alternating your melodies with a hook, something that can kind of vary, because as you saw, the chord progression being the same for a lot of different sections might end up sounding very similar. So that's where having a hook section that differentiates things is going to work out really well. And once you've established each of the melodies individually, then you can start getting into polyphony. So you don't necessarily have to have everyone come in all at once. You could start with maybe a couple at once and start building the number of layers. That's a way to sort of build a crescendo and build your energy throughout the end of the song. So how does all this apply to the Sigma 5 heist? We are currently working on the recruitment song for the heist. So the scientists need a certain number of people to help pull off the heist, and they end up recruiting through their different connections, hence the name of the song, Do We Have a Connection? We originally were thinking of this song in kind of a verse, chorus, bridge kind of a way, and having like the same kind of a verse happening for each of the recruitment sections, but that actually felt very limiting, and it didn't feel like it was providing a lot of information about the individual characters. And so that's where we, my collaborators and I, came up with this idea for doing a polyphonic section, where each of the individual characters that we're meeting, who are going to be part of the heist, do end up getting their own individual musical themes. But by having them all work together in a polyphonic way, the music supports the plot of the song, which is we're bringing a lot of disparate people together into unison as part of a team. So that's why we're using this particular structure on this song. And I also want to show you my Cubase project where I have this set up so you can see how I'm doing this process for myself to write polyphony for this song. All right, here we are in my Cubase project for the song Do We Have a Connection? And here is the section where I am working on developing some melodies for the polyphonic section. So up here, I have this marker showing my 16 bar section that I have set up. And here on the chord track, we have some chords where I have selected a chord progression for these bars. So far, I have 3 different melodies set up. So I started with this particular melody right here. And so that was the first one. I decided to make a second melody, which is a little bit faster. So that one has a lot of long notes, and this one uses some shorter notes. Here on this one, we have some eighth notes as well. But there's more of them, and they're earlier in the phrase. If we look at these 2 melodies together, you can see how they fit. So right at the beginning here, the 2 colors represent the 2 different melodies. So it just so happens that this first melody starts right before the downbeat, whereas the second one starts right after the downbeat. So we've got them starting at different times. We've also got the movement mostly happening at different times. So we've got, when this one's got a long note, we've got some shorter notes in this one. We do have a couple of times where it's on the same note. That might be something I want to fix. But let's hear how this sounds so far. So yeah, a couple of places where I might want to actually change the melody so that they're a little bit different from each other in terms of pitch. And then I've got a third one. Let's add the third one in. All right, so the third one actually starts even earlier before it's on the end of 3 of the bar before the downbeat, and it goes higher than the others. So that's one of the ways it's differentiating. It also has some moving notes over, there's some sections on the other 2 where they're kind of long at the same time. So this green one has some moving notes in there. So let's hear how all 3 of these sound together. So that's pretty much it for my polyphonic progress so far. I'm hoping to have 5 or 6 different parts, but for now, that is the setup. All right, and closing out with the resource of the week, this week's resource is the Seth Deconstructs videos on the Playbill YouTube channel. I absolutely love watching his videos. Seth Rudetsky is one of the most entertaining music directors I am aware of, and he really digs into the details on deconstructing either songs or performances, things like that. The one that I really enjoyed watching this week was his deconstruction of the Schuyler Sisters from Hamilton. So if you're really interested in watching that video, go check it out. And that's it for this week. If you've got a favorite polyphonic song from musical theater, put it down in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like, and if you want to follow along with my songwriting journey, please hit subscribe. Thank you, friends, and see you next time. Bye! Finishing